Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Spring Clean Your Data Governance and Build a Program that Stays Clean. We're in the midst of spring here, and some of you may be in that process of annually cleaning out your house and wondering where all your past efforts went, as all that clutter kind of just mysteriously reappears year after year. And that can certainly be said of data governance as well. So that's what we're going to take a look at today, the challenges that come with a disorganized data governance program. And then we'll see a demo that will take us through how we can maintain and clean, so to speak, your data governance program in just a moment. And so before we jump into that, I just would like to introduce our speakers for today. My name is Anna Martini. I'm a product marketer here at Precisely, and we have Brian Link from Precisely, our senior product manager. Brian has over a decade of expertise as a senior product leader, and he'll be kicking us off here. And then we have Chris Reed, who has over 25 years of experience in the IT and data management world, focused on data governance, data quality, and data observability solutions. And Chris is our senior sales engineer, also at Precisely. He'll be walking us through the demo. So with that, I will hand it off to Brian.
Great, thanks, Anna. All right, before I get started here, let me make sure the slide here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about, I'm going to set the table just a little bit. So let's talk about where most organizations actually are with data governance. If you think about the last time you did a real spring clean here to stay on theme, not a quick tidy, but the kind where you kind of open every closet, pull everything out, and finally deal with all the stuff that you've been shoving in the back for years, that's what data governance feels like for a lot of teams right now. And the mess has really kind of been accumulating, and keeping up with it manually just isn't working anymore. So this kind of first number on the slide, I find striking every time I see it. 65% of organizations rate their own data governance programs in the early initial stages. These aren't organizations that have ignored governance. These are companies actively investing in it. By their own assessment, most are still in the early stages. This tells me that the problem isn't awareness or intent. It's that most leaders know governance matters. The problem is that the tools and processes that they're relying on simply can't scale with the pace of change in their data environments. The second stat here, the second stat brings this to life operationally. 70% of the time your data teams spend on external data is just preparation, wrangling, cleaning, reconciling, before anyone can do anything useful with it. That's not analysis, it's not insights, not AI. That's just getting data into a state where you can start working with it. So for your kind of technical audience, you feel this acutely. It's the undifferentiated heavy lifting that crowds out the work that actually moves the needle, right? For your business stakeholders, the translation is your data teams are spending the majority of the time just trying to understand what they have before they can do anything useful with it. And then the third one here, the last number, the 4,300 hours a year on average. That's more than 2 full-time employees doing nothing but compliance work. And especially with financial and regulatory data, that number can be significantly higher. So here's the real issue with manual compliance. It's point in time work. You get audit ready for a specific moment, and then your environment changes, new data sources, new regulations, new business processes, and then you have to start again. It's like cleaning the house before a party. I would say, I would tell my wife this, and then the guests arrive and you have to clean and do it all over again, right? So why does this keep happening? Why do governance programs stay in this reactive manual cycle? Let's look at some of the root causes. Put the slide to move. Okay, perfect. So manual governance doesn't really kind of fail because people aren't trying hard enough. It fails because the underlying structure of how governance gets done creates compounding problems over time. Let me walk you through kind of these main reasons we see this play out again and again across organizations of all sizes. The first one is ownership, or more precisely, the lack of it. When one or more person or team is definitively responsible for a data asset, everyone assumes someone else is handling it. I've done it, everyone's done it. Definitions drift, quality degrades, and when something breaks, it becomes an investigation just to figure out whose problem it is. This is the governance equivalent of a shared kitchen where nobody owns the cleaning schedule. It's nobody's job, so it ends up being everybody's problem. And especially again with financial and regulatory data where accountability isn't optional, that ambiguity creates real risk. Second, governance artifacts. Your data dictionaries, your lineage documentation, your policies are usually created in a moment in time. A project kicks off, somehow documents the metadata, and then the project moves on while the data keeps evolving. New columns get added, pipelines get rerouted, business logic changes, so on and so forth. Documentation doesn't automatically update itself. So over time, what was once accurate becomes unreliable in your governance artifacts because something people stop trusting and eventually stop using. Third, governance tends to live in too many places. A spreadsheet here, a wiki page there, a confluence page, a ticketing system somewhere else. Every handoff between tools is a potential break in the chain, a place where information doesn't transfer cleanly, where things tend to fall through the gaps. And when compliance time comes around, someone has to manually reconcile all those sources. It's slow, it's error prone, and it's almost always a fire drill. Fourth, and I guess finally, the manual governance simply doesn't scale. When you have 50 data assets, it's manageable. When you have 5,000, it isn't. Every new data source, every new regulation, every new AI initiative multiplies the governance surface area you need to cover. But your team size doesn't multiply with it. What worked at your organization's size 3 years ago will likely not work your organization 3 years from now. I always like to think what got you here won't get you there. And for many of you, it's already not working. So that's the diagnosis. Let's talk about what the program looks like that actually stays clean, not just during the spring clean, but all year long. So this is kind of the pivotal point of today's conversation. Spring clean is valuable, but what's even more valuable is building a system where things don't need a major cleanup in the first place, where governance is continuous, automated, and embedded into how your data works rather than something that you really kind of layer on top of it. That's where we kind of help organizations build it precisely. And the results on this slide aren't aspirational. These are outcomes customers are achieving. Um, I'll start with start with the domain-based ownership. So how do we get there? The first capability is domain-based ownership with automated configurable workflows. Instead of governance being a centralized function that tries to manage everything manually, we move accountability out to the domains that actually own the data. Every data asset has a clear named owner, not a committee, not a team, but a person or a role who is accountable for it. And when data changes, ownership workflows trigger automatically. New assets get assigned, the stale documentation gets flagged for review. Approvals route to the right people, the governance machine keeps running, even when no one is manually pushing it. The metadata propagation, the second capability is that metadata propagation across lineage. This is what makes governance stay clean rather than requiring kind of a periodic cleanup. When your metadata is tied to lineage, changes upstream automatically flow downstream to update documentation, classifications, and policies so your governance artifacts are always current, especially with the financial and regulatory data. This means that you're always audit ready. You can demonstrate where a number came from, who owns it, and what policy governs it at any point in time, not just after a cleanup sprint. For technical teams, this means lineage-aware governance that tracks data as it moves through your pipelines. For business leaders, it means you can evolve your evolve your environment without fear that governance will fall behind. The data, we'll touch quickly on the data on there. So 31% reduction. These are the kind of things that our customers are finding today. 31% reduction in manual governance tasks. It means the data stewards and analysts are spending nearly a third less time on repetitive administrative work that's keeping governance up to date, more time on analysis or strategy on the work that's actually valuable. A 10% year-over-year reduction in support requests. When governance is clear and ownership is well defined, people can find what they need and trust what they find. The questions stop flooding into your data teams because the answers are already there. And 21% year-over-year improvement on onboarding time. Getting a new team member, new AI systems productive with your data is dramatically faster when your governance artifacts are current, accurate, and automatically maintained. So we started today to talk about spring cleaning, and honestly, for most organizations, the spring clean is the right place to start. Clear out what's broken, get ownership in place, understand what you actually have. But the goal isn't to have a clean house once a year. The goal is a house that takes care of itself effectively, where governance is built into the structure, not painted on top of it. That's what we want to help you build. I'm gonna hand it over to Chris now, who's going to show you what that looks like in action.
Thank you, Brian. So for today's demo, I'm going to show you how that spring cleaning is going to affect our end user and make things in their life a lot easier. So we're first going to start in with a view from a user perspective, and then I'm going to go over and show you from the perspective of a data steward who's managing and doing the actual cleaning in the environment. So we're going to start off today. I'm an end user and I'm tasked with building a report for our B2B sales. And I want to make sure that the data that I have, if there's PII, If there's any kind of usage constraints I have on that data, I want to make sure I'm in compliance and using it correctly. So to start off, I could type in and ask my Geo Assistant over here which data sets have PII. Now I already have this particular search saved, so I'm going to go right to that to save us a little bit of time. And you could see here I asked the question, are there data sets that contain PII? And sure enough, it came back with my Snowflake data set called Sales Transactions B2B. So it's this one, it's telling me contains PII. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that particular table. And now we're going to dive into that to get some more information about that table. As you can see, there's a couple key things that I want to note when I'm looking at this particular table that tells me if it's good and I could feel confident in using it. One of them, we have our quality scores and we have our governance scores. Those look very good up there. We also see that this has been certified by our data steward team, so that's good. We got our description. And here are those two critical flags that I was looking for. I know that this contains some critical data elements, which my PII flag has been flipped as true. So I know that it contains some PII. And I also could see down here some of the ownership of who owns this particular piece of data. So I see those folks over there. And then below, I could see my fields. If I wanted to look at any of these fields to get some more details on them, I could highlight that field. And I could come over here, I get a side panel, a quick view that shows me what's in this field. And I could see here, okay, this is the sales representative's name, the name, it flagged this is somebody's name, so that's PII definitely. So I have that flag, and again, you could see that ownership is inherited. I could also come over here and I could see a profile of that information. So now I can get some more statistics about that particular field. One of the other keys, now that I know that I have good quality data, it's been governed, certified, and we have PII, I want to know what other systems are affected by this data. So I could come over here to lineage, and the lineage is going to show me the various different systems that this data flows through. I could expand any one of these, click on a field, and see how that field comes through and flows through the various different sets of data. This here was joined by the customer ID. I click on that and I could see all the fields that came over. So this data originated originally from a CSV file. Here's our table, with our PII, and I could see it's also going to flow downstream to our staging table, our fact table, and then ultimately to our BI report. So now I've received that various set of information. I know how I need to handle that information. I know it contains PII, and I'll need to be careful with that. So how did everything get labeled that way? Well, as an end user, I get to benefit from all this. But let's go back and take a look at the perspective of a data steward. And now I'm the one who's responsible for stewarding this information and making sure that everything gets labeled correctly. If I go into the catalog, I could always search through and find the various different data sets and things that I'm responsible for. I'm going to click over here onto data sets. And in this example, let's say I'm responsible for the customer data set. And I click on that particular data set, look at it, okay, I see some of the information here. This hasn't gone through our process yet of identifying PII. I see some of the fields down here. Now, in order to assist me in doing this, I can manually set the flag as PII, or else I could use my Geo Assistant again, who's available up in the upper corner here. I click on him, and it tells me I can do a number of different things with this customer table. Again, I already have something already set in here where I asked it, are there any fields available in this table that we'd be considering PII? So it highlights and identifies email that it looked at, and it says yes, email is a PII element by our description, and here's the reasoning. Email is a direct personal identifier. So now I have that ability, and I see, okay, email is a PII. I want to update that flag and have that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and click update, and now that asset will be updated according to the system. So another important piece that you saw in there was we identified the ownership. Well, how do I go about getting the owners assigned? Under my domain, each of the data sets, we have that divided out by domains. I have one out here called the customer domain. Again, we're sticking with that customer theme here. So let's click on customer domain. And when I go into customer domain, I could see in that particular domain of data, these are the various different owners that I have, the types, and the names of those folks that are assigned to those ownerships. Now, if I wanted to add, I could just click on add over here. I could create and add a new custom ownership type, or I could use one of the ones that I already have over in the system here available. And once I select the type of owner that I'm looking for, then I could go in and search through the users and groups and assign either a user or group to that domain, and they will be responsible with that role. Now, once I have that set up and I have the user ownership roles set up, to assign my various different tables like I had, I would just come over here to relationships. You could see we have some relationships over here, that customer master table. There's the sales transactions and so forth. If I wanted to add a new one, I'd say create and select my tables and then just go in and pick the assets that are part of that domain that I want to give the ownership to. Now, another important piece I mentioned when we originally went into that table was that certification process, because that lets me know that we've had our stewards look at this and ensured that we had good quality, good data in there, and that it's correct and we could use it. Well, that process all is governed through our workflow. If we go into, I'll show you an example in workflow here. Our request certification of a data set workflow. The workflow is easy to create. We use a drag-drop user interface where I could create a workflow that allows users to go in, execute the workflow to certify various different tables and data sets. This is the path that it'll take, and then I could always go over here and configure any of these various different actions on the side. So easy to use drag and drop workflow that we have available to you to be able to build in the system. Now, when I see that there, again, coming back to our data set, let's go here. And I select that data set. Let's go to that data set. We're going to bring that up. You can see this one hasn't gone through that process. And to kick off the request certification process, I go over here to make requests, and I can request certification, and it'll trigger that workflow. So in today's demonstration, we're able to show you the end user perspective where I could go in, quickly find information, understand that if I do have a data set, does it have PII? What other data sets are affected with that PII information? And then went in from the data steward perspective to see how we could set up those PII flags utilizing the Geo AI assistant to find that information, and then also utilizing the workflow to go through the certification process. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, Brian, as well. That was a great demo. We are about to wrap up, but just wanted to point you all to some great resources that are tailored to what we just saw, tailored to data governance and getting your data ready for AI. And we'd also just love to connect with you and hear your use case and have a conversation on how we can partner on that together. And if you're interested in our Precisely solutions more broadly, I welcome you to check out our website and see everything that's on there. With that, we will wrap up for today. Thank you all so much for attending, and I hope you have a fantastic day.